My name's Bill Thorpe, and this is my story so far. On June the 10th, 1983, I decided to get everyone out of bed because I was going to get born at 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm from the UK, and I lived in a small town called Guildford, about half an hour's drive from central London. I don't recall much from the early years, but I do have a bunch of photos, and I remember my parents dressed me up as a rabbit for my first birthday. From what I've been told, I was polite, I was pretty well behaved, and overall a good kid. My first day at school. I remember my first day at school being that of a happy one. I made a lot of friends during the first few years, and from having a lot of friends, means you can have parties too. I've never been so excited, and they were so much fun. When I was 3, my mother was expecting another baby, and I was excited about having a brother. And even though he was the younger brother, he was definitely the alpha male. In 1990, my dad came home with something, and it changed everything. The Nintendo Entertainment System. It came with Duck Hunt and Super Mario Bros., but Super Mario Bros. Was the first game I ever played. It was so strange interacting with a TV, and at the same time, the best thing ever. It wasn't before long Nintendo dominated the birthday parties, and what we drew and how we even saw things. I had a good friend called Nicky at the time. He unfortunately moved all the way to Chichester, and this is when I found out about the best game of all time. We owned quite a few other games on the NES, but it was Mario Bros. 3 that was my favourite. I enjoyed my school life, and I had a teacher called Mr. Burgess. His teaching practices made learning a lot of fun. One time he got us designing board games. It was the best project I've ever done. Just don't ask me how you play it, I've got no idea. This taught me how fun it was to be creative, and I did so many drawings during my youth. Mainly like action scenes, and I loved the Alien franchise. I loved it. I also made an interactive Alien game book. But again, don't ask me how you play it, I have no idea whatsoever. I was looking through my grades during my high school years, and to my surprise, I did quite well. We got these little orange slips called merits. They were basically there to tell us that you've done well. During my time at school, I met a person called Ben, and we've been friends ever since. We used to sit on a wall at break time and talk about all the upcoming games that were coming out for the Super Nintendo, and also the N64, which hadn't been released yet. So yeah, the next thing to take over our lives was the Super Nintendo. And I'd spend most weekends around Ben's house playing it. It had so many good games for it. Super Metroid, Zelda, and Super Mario World. Most Sundays, either with Ben or my family, we'd go to the Nut Hill car boot sale. Super Nintendo games were quite expensive to buy in the stores, but here you could get them cheaper. And speaking of cheap, we used to visit a store that we nicknamed the Cheapy Shop. In fact, I don't even remember it being that cheap. I remember haggling with this guy so much that he'd just get tired and give me what I wanted. I remember back when me and my brother were sitting in my room playing Starwing together. My dad came into the room looking quite upset. It's at that moment everything changed. My parents were going to get a divorce. I remember putting down my controller and quite literally seeing my world blow up before my very eyes. It was game over. My parents were fantastic when I was growing up, but sometimes shit happens. We had some good times walking around Newlands Corner, the Chantries, Leaf Hill, and of course Pewley Down, which is one of my favourite places today. I remember this period as I was moving around from hotel to hotel. We stayed in some very strange bed and breakfasts. One of the hotel chefs gave me apple pie and baked beans. I won't forget that. It was a very difficult time for my parents, so this game got me through. Super Mario Land 2. Despite all this happening, me and my brother took it quite well, although I must admit it was a bit of a blur. So eventually we moved with my mother and a new boyfriend to a place called Basingstoke, which was 30 miles from Guildford. I moved to a new school where it appeared to be quite different even though it was only 30 miles away. Booze, smoking and drugs seemed a bit more mentioned around here, but maybe it's because I was just getting older. Okay, I'll be completely honest and say I did try weed a few times, though for some reason I had a grudge against alcohol and I never went near it. But my favourite store in the entire world was Offbeat Sports. It was run by a load of guys that I'm still friends with today. Back then, rollerblading was the big thing and I had to be a part of it. It wasn't before long I got my first pair of skates for my 13th birthday, and I never looked back. I made quite a few friends, and every weekend we'd skate together, and I got quite good at it. After finishing school, I managed to get into college. I thought the best thing to do would be to follow in my father's footsteps and get a trade, so I decided to do plumbing. I passed the first year, but I didn't really enjoy it, so I wanted to try something else. I'd always enjoyed drawing, so I thought, why not try an intermediate course in art and design, and that's what I did. I then did a course for a further 2 more years, concentrating on different areas of art, such as 3D design, graphic design, and life drawing. I got more pieces of paper to prove my worth, and I moved all the way down to Southampton to go to the Solent University, and decided to take a course in product design with marketing. I didn't really get involved in the party side of things at university, so I'd either spend my time skating, studying, or playing video games. I was a bit of a nerd. During my time at uni, I got an award for a lighting project I did, and also got my degree as well. Happy days. After university, I was pretty pleased with myself, and I was looking forward to starting work. I got my first job as a graphic designer, designing logos for a company. However, 6 months later, a guy in India said he could do it a lot cheaper, and I lost the job. Unfortunately, in the UK, we hit a recession. Work seemed to be harder to find. It didn't look like I'd be getting the job of my dreams anytime soon, but I didn't lose hope. Although I was pretty broke, first things first was to move out of my parents' house. I was too old to live there anyway. I moved into my mate's dad's house. He was a super sweet guy, but he treated the place more like a shed than a place you'd live in. He'd have the volume on his TV up super loud and would go to bed really late and wake up really early. He also smoked a shit ton of weed. It's funny, it'd be too noisy to sleep, but yet the smell of weed knocked me out, so it kind of worked out in a way. I couldn't really complain as the rent was only £300 a month. So all in all, it was okay. Because of the lack of work, I had to get the first job I could, which happened to be a job at HMV. It was a job as a cleaner, and I had to lie about my degree, which I'd worked so hard for. But I didn't lose hope, and this is why. A job like this means no stress. You don't take your work home with you, and it's generally easy to do. Not to mention, it pays surprisingly well. This gave me time to concentrate on other things. Using what I learnt at uni, I spoke to the council and took part in the redevelopment of Basingstoke Skate Park. I also worked as a part-time teacher. I worked in referral units teaching children that are being expelled from school. It was a very eye-opening job. So now I decided to give art the big push it needed. I started out poorer than you can ever imagine, but I managed to scrape by. I still kept the cleaning job, but I began to get known for my artwork. I developed a character that ended up being my own trademark. There was something about repetition I loved. I just really wanted to see how far you can take a single image in a whole lifetime. The image is definitely inspired from things I might have seen in my youth, which only adds to why I like it so much. So that was it from then on. I then got invited to take part in Secret Wars. Secret Wars is an event where 2 artists go head to head to try and do the better piece of artwork. The rules are you're given 90 minutes, a load of black pens and a great big board to draw on. The winner is decided by the crowd and a decibel reader. I was up against Zadok that night. If you know Zadok, then you know I lost. It's at these events that I met a girl, and this marked the start of the dark time. So yeah, this was a dark time for me. I was thinking of avoiding talking about this completely, though I do think it's appropriate, though I can tell you now I won't be doing any cartoons. So I got involved with a girl that unfortunately was diagnosed with cancer. She was up and down with her medication and often had mood swings. She was finding it difficult to find accommodation where she was, so I agreed to help her out and let her stay at mine, and also help her out of money as well. I stuck by her and tried to support her as best I could for 3 years, but during that time she became paranoid and abusive in the relationship. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I struggled to find help. There's only so much friends and family can do, and it was my fault as I was quiet a lot of the time. She was very much a different person around my friends. She tried to turn them against me and nearly succeeded on some occasions. After a terrible night out clubbing where she got drunk and high, despite me trying to stop her, I put myself forward and ended the relationship. I felt so bad. I just left a person with cancer. But every day I could feel myself sinking into depression and deteriorating in the relationship anyway. I did feel bad, but with her gone, I did feel a lot freer. But unfortunately the worst was yet to come, as according to her friends, she had lied about her illness. I could not believe it. I'd been lied to for 3 years. No, you do not lie about something that claims the lives of 14 million people every year, including the life of my grandmother and nearly one of my very good friends. Never before have I felt like such an idiot. And at that moment, after standing up to the environment of university, those days at youth clubs, general parties and pushy mates, I began drinking. Now, I didn't turn into an alcoholic, it was just like casual drinking at the weekends. I was a bit disappointed I got this far and not done it, though I didn't really regard it as a problem. However, a lot of people thought it was out of character for me. It went on for a few years and I did have complete control of it, though I did make a lot of mistakes. Sundays I'd usually be out painting, but now I'll be stuck in bed hungover. It was such a waste of time, money and my health. I then made a friend called Curtis. He sought me out and put a spray can in my hand, and that day forward I became a street artist. I still don't like that name. I began painting a lot. Pretty much every weekend I'll be out doing something somewhere. Things were starting to look up. I got an amazing studio at a cheap rate. I seemed to be getting better at using spray paint, and I started to get exhibitions, not only in the UK but internationally as well. I worked with a bunch of fashion companies that manufactured and produced a range of clothing that I made designs for. My stuff was sold all around the world, but it was great to see it in Japan. I worked with a furniture designer called Stuart Melrose. We made coffee tables that were inspired by manufacturing methods of skateboard design. Good stuff. I managed to finally get some of my work in Weapon of Choice Gallery and Graffiti Life. I made the front cover of Fiasco magazine, and I worked with Creative Mess making designer iPhone covers, and I made a watch with a company called Lead Watches. On a summer's day, me and Kieran, who you may remember from the vlogs, were sitting down chilling out on a field. We spotted a few girls in the distance. We waved, they waved back, and that's how I met Lauren. This is the girl I've been looking for all those years. She sorted me out and everything else. She saw that I couldn't dance way too soon. She saw I couldn't handle my drink way too soon. She saw my garden shed style hell house way too soon. And she knew I cleaned floors and had no money, but she didn't care. She travelled 40 miles on the train every Friday just to spend 24 hours with me. That's really something. The first film I took round to her grandmother's house was a Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1974 version of course. And yeah, I think it went down pretty well. In under 2 years she got me out of the hell house and we managed to get a place together. After 17 years of not being on a plane, she got me to the place I've always wanted to go, Japan. I never thought I'd ever get to go there. We went to Barcelona where I painted abroad for the first time. We went to Sicily where we swam in clear seas and climbed up Mount Etna. We went to the rainforest of Rio and went on a really crazy boat party. One day I decided to price my painting exactly the same amount as a ring that I saw. I sold the painting within 5 days and definitely thought I was doing the right thing. I proposed in Guildford High Street under the clock. I've got many fond memories of living in Guildford, and now we can share one together. In 2014, me and some friends got the opportunity to open up a gallery in the town centre of Basingstoke. We got featured in the newspapers numerous times. It was kind of a big deal. The mayor of the town also wrote to us as well, thanking us for what we've done. In 2015, we were nominated for an award and we won it a year later. In 2016, an amazing thing happened. My grandfather gifted me and my brother his old home in London. I am massively grateful for this, and I still can't believe it's happened. The struggle to find housing in the UK is becoming atrocious, and I sometimes feel guilty of what I have and what others don't. So I made a promise that once a year I'll do something for charity. Christmas 2016, I walked all the way from London to Guildford. It took about 13 hours. Christmas 2017, I walked all the way from Guildford to Brighton, kind of. And on those two journeys, I raised just under £1,000 for Shooting Star Chase Children's Hospice. Before we moved into our house, we got the dog of our dreams and named him Wilson.
Wilson, where are you?
Yeah, it was my idea. He's the love of our lives. Sadly, in 2017, I decided to put my career as an artist to rest. I felt like my heart was set upon making films. And although I felt like I'd gone back to where I started, I think doing what you love overrules the concept of being successful. In 2017, me and Lauren married around a small group of friends and family in New York City. It was a perfect day. Life is a series of moments, and this is my story so far.